Yuba-Sutter.LIVE's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at PlumasLakeSelfStorage.com.
Good morning and welcome to the Yuba Water Agency Board of Directors meeting for Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. We're going to go ahead and start off with roll call.
Director Vasquez?
Here.
Director Blazer?
Here.
Director Fear?
Yes.
Director Bradford?
Here.
Director Messick?
Here.
Director Matthews?
Here.
Director Bishop?
Here. Great, thank you. And Director Messick, will you lead us in the pledge?
Please rise and join me for pledge of allegiance. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next is public comment.
Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to address the members of the board of directors on any subject matter that is not on the meeting agenda and is within the board's subject matter jurisdiction. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the total amount of time for public comment is 15 minutes. Persons participating by way of video conference or teleconference will ensure their audio is muted at all times except when the board chair announces public comment period. At those designated times, members of the public wishing to speak shall enable their audio and state their name for the record. When multiple members of the public wish to speak, the clerk will determine the order of speakers and announce their names accordingly. To ensure proper conduct, the board reserves the right to mute the audio and video of any member of the public violating generally accepted principles and decorum of official public meetings. And I do request if there is public comment today, if you can come and sit here closer to the microphone so that our Zoom participants can hear us. Is there any public comment?
Okay.
And is there any online? No.
Frank's hand raised.
Hold on. Okay. Frank, you can unmute now and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for the time. Frank Brunella, I've been an advocate of the river for many years and been part of the Yuba cleanup and the signing of the Yuba Accord. I was there 20 years or more working on projects on the lower Yuba River to include all the salmon forums. And it seems like we've always tried to protect our salmon and our wild steelhead. And my concern right now is that this proposed Daguerre Point Dam fishway does not include a fish ladder system. Historically, the lower Yuba River above Daguerre Point Dam has been a safe sanctuary for rearing and spawning wild and sealed steelhead and salmon, free from predatory fish. The current fish ladder system at Daguerre Dam has always worked as a no-pass zone for striped bass and American shad. Shad and striped bass do not go up fish ladders. Both of these fish are predatory to salmon and steelhead. We're asking that, if it's possible, the new fishway bypass be constructed in such a way that it keeps the predatory fish below Daguerre Point Dam where they have historically migrated to and not gone above Daguerre Point Dam in many, many years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't see any additional public comment. So with that, we will move on to the consent items. Any public comment on, okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Next, we'll move on to discussion items, starting with item 2 and any public comment on item 2.
You come up here.
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, it's that time of year again. Every year you get
I'm sorry,
Oh,
you
Mike
state your name
Police.
for the record. Yeah.
Mike Police, Forward Irrigation, and Member Units Rep. It's that time of year again. You guys pick who's going to lead the agency. I think it's pretty important. Who's going to be chair? Who's going to be vice chair? Who's going to drive the bus? Who's going to sit on the seats in the bus? All those seats in that bus are important. Every one of you is sitting in an important seat. And as member units, things are happening right now. You got the Bay Delta, you got relicensing, you got everything that's coming down. It's very important that the staff has someone they can work with and lead, and the board go down a path, and that must be driven the way it needs to be driven and go down that road. And so I think it's very important that whoever you choose for your chair and vice chair, you think very hard about it. I know you'll make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to Mandy.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the nominations for chair for year 2024. Is there any nominations?
Through the chair. For the position of chair, I'd like to nominate John Messick.
I'd like to second the motion.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, we'll go ahead and have a roll call vote. Director Messick?
Yes.
Director Matthews?
Yeah.
Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Matthews? Oh, sorry, I have that twice. Director Blazier?
Yes.
Director Fuhr?
Yes.
Director Bishop?
Yes.
Director Bradford?
Yes.
Okay. So congratulations. Director Messick is going to be our chair. If you want to go ahead and switch sheets with Gary's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any money in that backpack you can leave them?
And then we'll open up nominations for vice chair.
I would like to nominate Gary Bradford for vice chair.
Second.
Okay. Go ahead and take a vote. Director Bishop?
Yes.
Director Bradford?
Yeah.
Director Vasquez? Director Fuhr?
Yes.
Director Messick?
Yes.
Director Blazier?
Yes.
Director Matthews?
Yes.
All right. Congratulations on vice chair. Okay. So
Okay. Item 3, receive presentation from interns on projects completed during the 2023. Reading the wrong way.
No, you're doing perfect.
Okay.
Just they give you some help. So
Okay.
you doing it. So
Okay. Terry.
So while we're bringing this up, I noticed the agenda says summer intern program. So it might seem unusual to you that here it is January and you're hearing from interns. As you know, at the end of their internship, we invite the interns to come and give a presentation to the board on what they learned. Well, these are kind of unusual, I should say unique, not unusual, interns, and because they are graduate students and they are from a very unique program at CSU Monterey Bay in scientific illustration. And so 2 of the interns started with us in, I believe it was July. One of those, Rowan, has been working full-time since then. And then Jonathan Robert has been working with us a little bit full-time, and then he went part-time for the rest of it. And then Lindsay Newey just recently joined us about, I want to say it was about a month ago. And a 400-hour internship in the field is required for their graduate program. So I'm going to be really honest with you. When we started this, Rowan and Jonathan, they all have been working remotely, but Rowan and Jonathan came and spent a week here. And so that they could see our facilities and understand how we operate and really, get the feel for what we needed them to do. And that first day I thought, oh my God, what have I done? We're not going to have enough projects to keep them busy for 400 hours. Well, that first week, not only did they get a tour and see our facilities, but they met with most of our managers to come up with ideas of what we could use, what visuals do we need to communicate our mission or communicate the project better. That's what scientific illustrators do. And at the end of that week, we had probably close to 100 different ideas for projects and requests for projects, enough that would keep all of them working all year long. And we didn't want that right now. They just wanted to do their internship. So Rowan is going to be completing her internship, Rowan Weir, in the next couple of weeks. And so I just thought we'd bring all of them to you together so that they could explain the process, what the program is, and then each of them, Rowan Weir, Jonathan Broberg, and Lindsay Newey, could describe to you some of the projects that they've worked on. So with all of that, you're going to bring up the So with that, let me turn it over to, I'm sorry, is it Rowan who's starting?
Yes, I'm starting. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much, Terry, for that wonderful introduction. I'm Rowan. And on behalf of our Science Illustration intern team here, I want to say that we're all very excited to talk to you today and to share a little bit about what we do and what we've been working on with Yuba Water Agency. So I thought I'd start us off by showing some common examples of where you might have encountered scientific illustration out there in the world, because it's a very broad field and there's many more applications and purposes than I've included in this slide here. But the main elements that all of these share is that they're all visual and they all communicate something to do with science. So where did we learn about this field? I'm going to hand it over to John, and he's going to tell you a bit about the graduate program that we all attended.
Thank you, Rowan. We are three interns from the Science Illustration program at Cal State Monterey Bay. As Terry said, our program is really unique in our country. It's one of the few schools that actually teaches science illustration and one of only a couple that teaches it as a full certificate versus just a couple of classes or a minor. We really make good use of our year here. They teach us not just art techniques, but also design that's science illustration specific, such as they teach us how to do interpretive panels, infographics, maps, and animations. They also teach us some natural science topics like anatomy of plants, animals, fungi, and professional practices like how to run a freelance business and how to write contracts and stay out of trouble with copyright. And then best of all, we also do an internship, which is why we're here talking to you today. I'll start by talking about myself and my internship. I'm Jonathan. I got my bachelor's degree in biology from Cal State Long Beach. I also really love the outdoors and animals. That's why here they call me the critter guy and set me up doing animal-related internship tasks. Yeah, I also really like wildlife photography, especially crawling around looking for native squirrels. And then my work mainly, I focus on watercolor, animation, and digital illustration. So to tell you about what my internship here was about, I was assigned to work on creating watercolor illustrations of protected species in the watershed. I worked closely with Jacob Vandermeulen. Our goal was to create these illustrations that could be used for environmental impact reports to accompany our descriptions of the animals, as well as employee training guides for identification of the animals, and then promotional materials like flyers, stickers, and then eventually these might be implemented into interpretive panels in the future. Next, I want to talk to you about how the purpose of the illustrations influenced the process, and then, yeah, I went through to make this a science illustration versus just a pretty picture of an animal. So I started by researching what are the identifying features of the animals. After telling myself, oh, this is going to be easy. It's just a fish. It's like a tube with little fins. This will be the easiest thing I ever painted. Then I do all the illustrations. No, sorry. Then I do the sketches and research and talking to Jacob, and we come up with all the things that are identifiable about these different fish. Stuff like, oh, what's the position of the eye versus the corner of the mouth? And what's the size of the tiny little fin on the back for males versus females, trout versus salmon? What color are they when they're by the ocean versus actually in the Yuba watershed? And yeah, so I come up with at least a page for each different kind of animal before I'm ready to start coming up with what the pose is going to be, which is on the next slide. Then I start doing sketching of the actual pose. Here I'm trying to fit it to the purpose, which we came up with is, for one, we want to make sure it's accurate because we have to, people are going to be using these to identify these animals in the field. But second, because we want these for promotional materials, we also want them to be engaging. So I wanted to make sure that we're showing the face. For example, this here was a red-legged frog. Because the identifying feature is the red legs, which are under the animal, we needed kind of a low down view, but also we wanted to be able to show the face, which is how we came up with this kind of crawling / relaxed pose. The other goal when coming up with these is to not infringe on photographer copyright. If I just copied any of these pictures, then I would be infringing on their copyright. So I had to make sure I was only pulling a little piece from each different image, which is why the sketch that I have here doesn't look quite exactly like any of the references I pulled from. Then I take my sketch, I paint it and take the painting to Jacob, and we come up with a list of changes. Sometimes it's really simple, like just changing the color a little bit, and sometimes I have to make adjustments like scrunching down the fish's neck, which I painted too long. But thankfully they're both fairly easy to accomplish in Photoshop, even though the original painting was in watercolor. And the result is this stack of fish and frog paintings we had here. We started with the fish because they were important fish to the nature-like fishway that we're trying to improve. And then, yeah, Jacob had a whole list of other priority animals for me. This is a really good internship for me. It taught me a lot about accuracy and research, and also working with a content expert, which are all things that are important for any science illustration job that we apply for in the future. And yeah, I wanted to say thank you. It was really great working with everyone here. The tour at the beginning gave us a really good sense of everything that you do here and how things work in the work culture, as well as introducing us to the people we'd be working with, who are all really generous with their time. And now I'm going to turn it over back to Rowan.
Okay, so as you heard from John, he comes from a bio background. And one of the fun things about this team is that we all come from biology-related backgrounds. For my undergrad, I studied biopsychology, which had classes like vertebrate biology, physiology, neurobiology. So I made a lot of notes, like you see on the left there. But I also studied studio art and took classes like electronic arts, sculpture, painting, and all of these helped me develop my focus and my interests more at the program at CSUMB. On the right, you see these are just some examples of work that I did while I was in the program. So I was very happy to be offered the opportunity to work with Yuba Water Agency for my internship, because I knew that a lot of what you all do here would align very well with my interests and the skills that I wanted to develop further. I worked with the staff here like Dee Dee and Ryan and Caitlin to design these two projects. The first being a map of the member units, highlighting their contributions within the county. And the second is a groundwater infographic or diagram, which is the project that I'm going to briefly walk you through the process of creating. So I worked with Caitlin to establish this goal, which is an infographic that depicts how geology within Yuba County watershed influences the accessibility of groundwater. In order to be able to depict both the watershed area and the underground geology, I elected to use this cutaway block design. I offered two different approaches, and the latter option was selected, which consisted of two parts, a topographic cutaway block and an expanded view of the geology underground. So first I started by generating a 3D model of the watershed to create a reference for the shape and structure of the block itself. This gives an idea for the overall shape, but doesn't have a lot of detail. So I then took a 2D map of the watershed and edited it to match the oblique perspective that we were looking for. And I combined those two references and created my final sketch. So then it was time to dive underground and build the expanded view depicting the geology. I used the shape of the block that I had built to guide this shape here, and consulted many images from the Sierra foothills and from Yuba specifically to create simplified versions of these different rock types. After combining those two parts and adding labels and a key, the infographic was complete. I also want to say that working with Yuba Water Agency was a wonderful experience for me. Everyone that I met and that I worked with here was so helpful and so enthusiastic and communicative. I felt like they really offered a great balance of support and autonomy for me as I was figuring out how to do things that I had never attempted before. I learned a lot, and I'm really grateful to them and really appreciative of how fascinating and inspiring Yuba County is as a whole. So thank you for being fantastic internship hosts. And I'll now throw it over to Lindsay so she can talk about her experience and projects.
Hello, I am Lindsay Newey. I got both my undergrad in biology and the certificate at CSUMB. And I've actually worked at Yuba County Water Agency before. In my undergrad, I worked on the Ellis Lake project, mapping algae with GSI and using NASA satellite data to chart where all of the algae was coming up and at what time with chlorophyll data from these satellites. And another part of that project was documenting all of the dead organisms on the side of the lake. And that's how I came up with this graphic on the right of one of those fish, which I actually ended up using for my portfolio to get into the program. So that's a kind of nice, 360 moment there. And I'm happy to be back and doing and contributing more stuff to the agency. Next slide. So my project right now, I'm working with Caitlin on a water rights map. And I just want to go over the sort of project priorities that inform how this map is made. The information that we're trying to get across and want to prioritize with this project is showing the water rights, having a tool to inform new employees on what Yuba has control over and what our rights are. So we need to visually describe these water rights, and we also need to give a sense of where these rights are graphically, where on the watershed does A start and where does it end, etc. And there also needs to be an element of showing the seniority and hierarchy of these rights to give it an idea of where things fall in priority. The next thing we have to pay attention to is accuracy, making sure that the information is up to date and accurate to the watershed. So we have sort of a balance that we need to come up with the map in accuracy to the watershed versus what's clear in terms of showing the water rights. And that kind of falls under accessibility and making sure that everyone who might see this map would be able to understand the information that it's trying to divulge. So making sure that it's clean, organized, legible, understandable. And also, there are some employees who have color blindness. So if using different colors is an element to differentiate the water rights, you have to make sure that all of those colors are able to be picked up by people with red-green color blindness and stuff like that. So all of these are things that I taking into account when making this graphic. Next slide. So with these visualization goals, we kind of have to come up with what we're, prioritizing and how to find that happy medium between a completely information prioritized map versus a spatial accuracy map. Like on the left-hand side, like a train map showing you where the stations are and where the trains go. It doesn't actually show you what the actual railway looks like. It just shows you what your path is and how you need to get to the next stop, versus a topographical map that shows you more accurately what the landscape actually looks like. And while we don't need an 100% accurate showing the topography and all of the detail that, say, Rowan would be doing in her project, we do still need some graphical accuracy. So we need to find a happy balance between these two to both show the information of the water rights, but also maintain accuracy to what the watershed is like. Next slide. So this is the progress that I have created so far. So I kind of struck this balance between that sort of subway map and topographical map sort of thing, and giving just basic line art of where the watershed is, but that still shows accurately where things are and what the watershed looks like, and has lines following it to show where water rights start and end. And then to show the seniority and hierarchy of it, we have these boxes on the left-hand side of each of the major parts of the watershed that show which water right takes priority. This is still just a work in progress of these maps. So I am still working on making sure that hierarchy is accurate and making sure all of the water rights are in the right spots, and what's the best way to visually complete everything. But once it's done, we'll have this one on the left that's the main map that shows the entire watershed and all of the water rights, and then a zoomed in map of the lower Yuba that will eventually show all of the diversions, which I haven't gotten to yet, but this is just to show you the idea of where I'm going with this project. Next slide. And then that's the end of my project, and we can lead into any questions you have about any of our projects now. And if you're interested in our work further, we also have our portfolios on this slide as well.
Thanks, John, Rowan, and Lindsay. If before you take questions, Mr. Chair, if I could just I just wanted to say one thing, and this is such a great program, the internship program that we do. And Yuba Water is pretty awesome and interesting just on its own. But really what makes a valuable and really great internship for students are the managers that work with those students. It takes a lot of time to work on the projects, to create the projects that they're working on. And I just wanted to take a minute to thank Ryan McNally, Jacob Vandermeulen, and Caitlin Chow. I don't know if Caitlin's here, she might be online. And especially Dee Dee Cordell, who worked with all of them in getting the specs right and getting the, just, hey, this isn't saying what I think you think it's saying. So thank you to all of you guys for working with them. So any questions for the?
Which one of the three is working for us?
All of them. Rowan has finished her internship. She's going to work for us.
We have got.
Oh, we have. We have.
Water rights. How does people access what they've put on? Is it on our website, or how does it fit?
Yeah, it certainly can be once it's finished. The water rights is still in progress, but and some of it is still being finished. But once it's all finished, we envision using it a lot on our website and then in brochures and handouts and fact sheets and wherever necessary, infographics that can be used for signage at bullards and things like that.
So we were to get you a water rights. The question I was asking, Warren Steele, who's one of our early directors, said that Porterville, Paul Ditchcock, had the first water right on Yuba. Wondering if those names meant anything.
Well, I am not that detailed in that project, but I don't know if Lindsay would recognize that name. But we can certainly, Caitlin's working with her on the details of the water rights, but we can definitely check into that. But once it's done, Charlie, we'll definitely have those.
Charlie, that's come up, and Caitlin is. That's come up. That exact conversation's come up in the past in this process. So I know Caitlin's looking into it.
So it would be, so Terry gave the thanks to Jonathan, Rowan, and Lindsay, but I kind of have to defend Terry a little bit here. When she brought this to me in the summertime, we have a great internship program that's been going on for many years, and we have all the successes at the end of the summer when they give their presentations. And she brought this scientific illustration one to me, and I said, "We're going to do what? We're going to have artists work for the agency?" She said, "Willie, just trust me, this will be beneficial." And seeing the benefits of what they put together on the screen is really helpful. We're always looking at ways to communicate what we do to the public, to regulators, and to others so that we can understand, what's going on. I'll use the groundwater one, for example. You can talk about, the underground aquifers and things like that, but until you see it, especially a cutaway of our watershed and how our watershed works, until you see it, you don't understand it. What this does is it gets people engaged in the conversation that wouldn't be engaged if you just show them a graph or a spreadsheet, right? So there's value there, but I'm going to use one of the illustrations to kind of tee off on in item 4 in the agenda here. If we could go to Jonathan's illustration of all the different species on the one slide. Jonathan, are you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Could you point out green sturgeon and lamprey in this?
Oh, those are the two in the upper left.
Okay, so lamprey, the far upper left, and the green sturgeon next to it?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about the nature like fishway, and we talk about salmon and steelhead, which I think most of us can identify on this page, but when we talk about lamprey and green sturgeon, honestly, I didn't know what a lamprey looked like when I started talking to CDFW and NIMS about needing to get lamprey past Deer Point Dam. So that helped the general manager of the water agency in those discussions. So I just wanted to point out, these are helpful. We are learning from them. I mean, I learn when I look at the cutaway of the groundwater, like I learn more detail just from that than I do from maybe somebody like Ryan McNally here. So very valuable. Thank you for pushing this and making me agree to have this. It's super valuable. And thanks to Jonathan, Rowan, and Lindsay. Thanks a lot.
And to defend Ryan, he showed him that cutaway.
Yeah.
So, through the chair, just a quick comment. I also wanted to echo kind of what's already been said, to thank the interns, Jonathan, Lindsay, and Rowan, and also the staff who puts in a lot of hours helping make sure we can do these internships. I think they're extremely valuable. And this one is super fascinating to me because, stereotypically people are either involved in science or maybe art and creative things and not necessarily a combination of the two. And so to hear that there's a program out there that's really taking those two things and combining them is fascinating to me. And I think that's great. So
it was really interesting working with them because I would meet with them every week, I think it was for a while, or every other week. Just here's, okay, so what'd you do this week? Well, the neck was too long or this is wrong. And one day Jonathan said to me, I said, okay, well, what'd you do this week? He goes, well, we did a field trip to the aquarium. What? I wanted to watch how the fish swam so that I could be accurate in my depiction. And I thought, and then you were a tough taskmaster there, Jacob, really pinning down, no, that's not what it looks like. You have to do this and this and this. So it was a really interesting process to learn about. So thank you guys very much. It was really great.
Through the chair. So this organization is the most intricate that I've ever been involved with. So all this work that they're doing is just really invaluable for your new employees, not only the employees, but guys like us that came in from a completely different era, and helping us try to understand it. It's really a good tool. So thank you.
Any other comments?
One comment too, I'll add to what Gary said, is there's also this communication skill that we have to, beyond the art and the science, and how are we what do we need to communicate, and how do we do it through the art, and I'm fascinated by the whole thing. Congratulations, it's great.
Any other comments? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
We'll move to item 4. Consider adopting resolution 2024-01, authorizing the execution of the Yuba River Daguerre Point Dam Nature-like Fishway Grant Agreement. Willie.
Yep. Okay. So I got to thank Joanna. Joanna's been working on this with CDFW and negotiating the detailed terms of the grant agreement. So, but she wasn't available to be here in person, so I'm going to present it. You'll remember back in May, we signed a term sheet with the state and CDFW and NIMS for the restoration plan related to restoring unrestricted fish passage at the Daguerre Point Dam, and also a reintroduction program upstream of New Bullard Bar in the North Yuba River. The term sheet isn't detailed, but it basically is the foundation of the agreement. And to further that agreement, we're working on a settlement agreement. The settlement agreement is not complete yet, but what is complete is the $30 million commitment and the grant agreement associated with that from CDFW to Yuba Water Agency. So that's what we're asking you to authorize me to sign in the next few weeks. And we will bring the settlement agreement to you once that is complete. The settlement agreement is contingent on the grant agreement that we're asking your permission to execute today, and the grant agreement is contingent on the settlement agreement. So what this does is this solidifies CDFW's $30 million commitment, and that's what we're asking to do now. Yuba Water Agency's $30 million commitment will be solidified when we bring the settlement agreement to you. And to one second, one other point. And to Mr. Ranella's question, and that's why I brought up the two species there on Jonathan's presentation. Unrestricted fish passage at the Daguerre Point Dam, or the restriction of fish passage at the Daguerre Point Dam, has been identified as one of the critical issues impacting listed species in the lower Yuba River by NIMS and CDFW. And it's been a foundational element of the negotiations and the details in the settlement agreement. And the purpose of the Nature-like Fishway is to provide unrestricted fish passage for those two species. Now most of us can see that illustration that Jonathan showed and identify a salmon and steelhead, which utilize fish ladders. However, green sturgeon and lamprey don't utilize fish ladders. They don't jump. They scooch along the bottom of the channel. So to provide fish passage for those species, we need an open channel that mimics the natural channel of the Yuba River. And that's the point of going with the Nature-like Fishway versus fish ladders themselves.
What affects predators getting up there?
We have to remember that CDFW and NIMS are our partners in this. They're not just regulatory agencies. We're working on a new way to work with our regulatory agencies, and they're partners in this. And we will analyze the impacts of both the listed and non-listed species as part of the design of the Nature-like Fishway.
So you're saying the agencies, even though they know they're predator fish, that can decrease the salmon population, are pushing us to let these predator species get above the Daguerre Point?
Yeah, because the overall benefit to all species, they believe the overall benefit will be to all species. We'll increase the numbers of salmon that will minimize the impact of the unrestricted passage of the Daguerre.
So you're saying we'll get more salmon? above the Garrett Point and the fish ladder. So
That's the intent of the design, yes.
I'd like to move to approve.
I'll second.
Any further comments, public comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Managers report.
Okay, it's fairly light today because we had a couple weeks of the holiday season, but New Bullard's Bar is at 626,000 acre feet. That's 112% of normal. All units were online up until today. Today is the beginning of the Colgate unit number 2 annual outage. I would say things are going well, but we're only a few hours into it, so don't necessarily know. The work at the power system headquarters is going well. I was up there last week, and the storm we had last week did cause some issues on site related to the stormwater pollution prevention plan, but I didn't see any impact to the adjacent properties or the county road going by, and the crew is currently working on that and improving those best management practices. And on to community relations and communications. The grants awarded at the last meeting were covered by the Appeal Democrat and Aqua's newsletter. The Appeal Democrat also covered our weather balloon launches from Kibbe Road in partnerships with Scripps Institute of Oceanography as part of the Atmospheric River Research Program. And that article was also picked up by KFBK Radio News. Yuba.net also ran an article from Sierra Nevada Conservancy that talked about the North Yuba Forest Partnership and the early Yuba 1 project and mentioned our involvement as an early supporter that led to millions of federal dollars for our forests. And I was interviewed by KCRA last week about snow surveys for a story that may come out later today. And our next meeting is January 16th.
Okay, director reports. Start down here with Juan.
Well, Ellis Lake, I'll just mention it again. I was surprised, well, not surprised, but interesting that Lindsay had done a project there. So I'm going to try to track that down and see what that actually was. The city is having an Ellis Lake Park master plan community meeting on the 13th at noon at the Elks Lodge. So if anybody wants to take a picture of this, you're welcome to do that. This is just for the landscaping part, the park around it, not the water. And I would expect we're going to see some kind of report on their working on the water side of it. Probably, I don't know, next month or two. So they were getting real close to making a decision on that, I think. That's it.
So happy New Year, everyone. And I think that there's a Kiwanis recruiting mixer at the Wood Butcher, 6 o'clock on Thursday. So you were invited as my guest.
Is there dancing?
You, sir, if there's a table available, can get on it and dance. I will bring the lampshade.
All right.
Director Bradford.
So I just want to thank the board for allowing me to serve as chair for 2 years. It was a great experience, and I appreciate all the support I had from staff during that time, and I'm excited to be vice chair, so thank you for that as well.
Matthews?
Different things happen when you do other things. We've been supporting the Salmon Festival, but more importantly, the Swan Festival, and the Fish and Game puts 2 tours every Saturday starting in November through the middle of January. Uses our rice dryer is their headquarters. Is a thank you to them. We host a luncheon at the end of the thing. So we hosted it a couple weeks ago, and the people from Sacramento came up to do the tour. And when we were having lunch, I was able to tell them about the things that the water agency is concerned about. And it's primarily salmon and taking our water to put, I think the way Willie describes it, they would like to take 55% of the water we have in dams and put it in the ocean. And I said that the McCollum River had put together a program that they had tremendous results about returning salmon. And one of the Fish and Game staff sent me an email about the McCollum River, which I passed on to Willie. And I wanted to pass it on to you this morning, because what it shows is the McCollum is a much smaller donator of water to the Bay Delta. Yuba is much larger, but they had returns this year of 27,000 adult salmon, where I believe the Yuba is down in the 4,000 or 5,000 area. And I would encourage us to think about doing what McCollum did and seeing if by 2029 we could have 29,000 returning adults. And the significance of that is if there's 140 to 160,000 returning adults to the streams of the Bay Delta, the salmon fishing is okay for both the sport and the commercial. This year, it has been completely closed. So this would be a way for water producers to join forces with the salmon sport fishing and the salmon commercial fishermen to know that we are trying to find a way to increase adult salmon back. And if you'll look at the handout I sent you, you'll see the lady that is now putting together a tour of our fish screen facilities and the Wholewood project. And with the support of the Water Agency, I would hope that we might try to do what McCollum has done and increase the adult salmon. So my suggestion would be that we set a goal of having 29,000 adult salmon returning by 2029. And that would go a long way towards helping us keep our water. If you'll look on the last page of the handout, you'll see the results of the McCollum by years as they've done different things. Now they have a hatchery. We don't want a hatchery. The suggestion would be that we do something where the Cordova fish grade already is transporting the juveniles back to the river. If we find a way to take some of those juveniles, fatten them up, and transport them to the bay, because this appears to be the way that both the hatchery at Oroville and the hatchery on McCollum have done to return salmon. And I think that it's something that we as an agency want to work. I've kept Willie informed about how we did all this. I think it's a mission that is very important to keeping our water. Thank you.
Director Bishop.
I don't have anything.
I'd like to thank you guys for the vote of confidence to let me be the chair this year. I apologize for my voice. I'm sick. I was spent 2 separate trips doing a water survey in Colorado this month in the effect of snow on the elk and deer herds. Got back late New Year's Eve with my normal sickness from walking around in minus 10 degrees many miles at a time, but it was very successful. Very successful trip.
Job somebody had to do it.
That's right. Step job, somebody had to do it. So that's all I have. With that, I guess meeting is adjourned.
Recording stopped.
Yuba-Sutter.LIVE's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at PlumusLakeSelfStorage.com.
Hi, I'm Neil Goforth of Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties. Caring for elders or even yourself has challenges. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties can help you address today's issues and plan for tomorrow with in-home and specialized care for you or your family members. Call us at 530-749-8800. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties.